Hello, everyone. Welcome back, and thank you for joining us today. We got an exciting news story to share, so let's dive right in. My name is Jake, and for the past 10 years, I was married to a woman named Natalie. If you had asked me a few years ago, I would have said I had a strong marriage. Turns out I was completely mistaken. Natalie had been secretly planning to leave me, convinced that she would walk away with half of everything. She believed she had everything perfectly planned out. However, what she didn't realize was that I was already 3 steps ahead of her. To be completely honest, things weren't always bad between us. When Natalie and I first got together, she was caring and affectionate. Back then, I genuinely felt like she was proud to be with me. But over time, things began to shift. She started nitpicking at me. At first, I dismissed it as playful teasing. But then it escalated. She began comparing me to other men, colleagues, friends, even complete strangers. Why can't you be more ambitious like James? Did you see how Kevin takes his wife on vacations? Must be nice. Frank always knows how to fix things around the house. You should learn from him. It was always someone else, someone taller, wealthier, or more skilled. At some point, I realized that no matter what I did, it was never enough for her. If I worked late, I wasn't earning enough. If I came home early, I lacked ambition. If I bought her gifts, I was wasting money. If I didn't, I was neglecting her. There was no winning. And believe me, I tried. The only reason I didn't leave sooner was because of our daughter. I didn't want her to grow up in a broken home if I could prevent it. So I stayed. I endured the passive-aggressive behavior. One ordinary Saturday afternoon, I was sitting in the living room, scrolling through my phone, when my daughter approached me with that hopeful little smile kids get when they're about to ask for something. "Daddy, can we get ice cream?" she asked, her big eyes already trying to charm me into saying yes. I chuckled and shook my head. "Sweetheart, you know ice cream isn't good for you all the time. Too much sugar." It was something I had told her countless times before. But this time, instead of pouting or trying to negotiate like she usually did, she simply shrugged and said, "But Uncle Ben always gets me ice cream." Everything inside me froze. I forced myself to stay calm, to act natural. But deep down, one question echoed in my mind. Who the hell was Uncle Ben? Keeping my voice steady, I asked, "Oh yeah? Who's Uncle Ben?" Without hesitation, she answered, "Mommy's friend. He comes over when you're at work or when you go on your trips. He buys me ice cream and cookies." I was speechless. A child her age doesn't make up things like that, especially not with such casual honesty. In her mind, there was nothing wrong with it. I forced a smile. "Oh, I see. That's nice of him." She nodded and ran off to play, but I just sat there, stunned. Natalie had a male friend who came over when I wasn't home. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I did something better. I started watching her closely. That's when I noticed the changes. She was leaving the house more often, always claiming she had errands to run. Yet she'd be gone for hours. Trips to the gym suddenly lasted half the day. She had spontaneous outings with friends she had never mentioned before. And whenever I asked simple questions like, "Where did you go?" or "Why did that take so long?" she would get defensive, like I had no right to ask. Her phone was another huge red flag. It was always on silent, always placed face down on the table. She took it everywhere with her, even to the bathroom. If it rang while we were together, she would quickly grab it and walk away before answering. It was obvious. She didn't want me anywhere near her phone. And on the rare occasions when I managed to glance at her screen, I'd see her swiftly swiping away notifications, as if she didn't want to see who was messaging her. That was new. We never had secrets before. But now, it felt like she was hiding an entirely separate life from me. Her attitude also changed. It was like she had flipped a switch. Every little thing I did seemed to annoy her. She started picking fights over the smallest issues. And I noticed something strange. These arguments always seemed to happen right before she needed to go out for some air or run another errand. It was as if she was searching for an excuse to leave the house. And the easiest way to do that was by making me the bad guy. For the longest time, I never suspected her of cheating. I kept trying to fix things. I would ask her what was wrong, if she was feeling stressed or if something was bothering her. But every time I tried, she shut me down. Then, when I started paying closer attention to these patterns, I stopped asking. One night, I was sitting at my desk in our bedroom, jotting down some notes when my pen ran out of ink. I looked around for a spare, and that's when I saw Natalie's handbag sitting open on the dresser. I reached inside, my fingers brushing against something small and plastic. Without thinking, I pulled it out. It was a prescription bottle. At first, I barely even registered what I was holding. The name of the medication didn't ring a bell, so I grabbed my phone and typed it into Google. Within seconds, the results appeared. The medication was used to treat sexually transmitted diseases. My heart pounded in my chest. I hadn't been intimate with Natalie in months. If she was taking this, there was only one explanation. Natalie was sleeping with someone else. I heard the water shut off in the bathroom. Quickly, I placed the bottle back exactly where I found it. I didn't want her to know what I had just discovered. Instead of confronting her, I decided to play along. Texas is a fault-based divorce state, meaning that if I could prove her infidelity, she wouldn't just lose her claim to alimony. She could even end up paying me damages. That realization changed everything. Instead of reacting, I decided to set a trap. In the days that followed, the first thing I did was secure the services of a divorce attorney, an expert in cases like mine. He laid everything out with precision, explaining exactly what I needed, undeniable evidence that would stand firm in court. That's when I enlisted the help of a private investigator. It took over a month before the PI returned with results, but what he uncovered validated my worst fears. She wasn't just being unfaithful, she was brazen about it. There were photographs of her rendezvousing with this man in various locations, but the most gut-wrenching part? She had the audacity to bring him into our home. That's right, while I was at work, she would invite him over. The PI provided time-stamped images and videos, capturing his car parked in front of our house multiple times. At that moment, any lingering attachment I had for her disintegrated. This wasn't just betrayal. It was blatant disrespect. And then there was our daughter. I had always suspected she was neglecting her, but now I could see just how severe it was. She would disappear for hours, sometimes missing bedtime entirely, just to be with him. She was absent. My lawyer made one thing clear. If I could prove she was neglecting our child, I could pursue full custody. And that's precisely what I intended to do. She had no inkling of what was unfolding behind the scenes. She believed she had me fooled, but in reality, I was meticulously assembling my case, piece by piece, biding my time for the perfect opportunity to act. When it came to finances, I knew Natalie wouldn't hesitate to drain me dry, so I made my move preemptively. I transferred all my major assets into accounts under my daughter's name, structuring them as college savings and inheritance funds. On paper, everything now legally belonged to her, and since these accounts were strictly designated for her future, Natalie couldn't touch a single cent. This wasn't a mere matter of shifting money. I consulted with a financial expert and a lawyer to ensure everything was airtight. Once the arrangements were finalized, there was no reversing them. This wasn't about being vindictive. It was about safeguarding what I had worked tirelessly to build. Had I left our assets in joint accounts and merely asked for a divorce, she would have been entitled to half, possibly even more if she played her cards right. But now, that money was no longer mine. And as long as I remained our daughter's legal guardian, I retained full control. Then came the moment I had been anticipating. One evening, following yet another heated argument, Natalie finally uttered the words I had been waiting for. I want a divorce. She folded her arms, staring at me, expecting desperation, anticipating that I would plead, panic, or fight for her. But I did none of those things. I had been prepared for this moment long before she had even considered saying it aloud. If anything, I wanted out even more than she did. Instead of engaging in another pointless argument, I simply smiled and said, "Okay." That single word threw her off. She blinked, caught off guard, as though she hadn't expected it to be that easy. In her mind, she believed she held all the leverage. She assumed she would walk away with half of everything, plus alimony to ensure her comfort. She had no idea that I had spent months laying the groundwork for this precise moment. The very next morning, before she could even begin discussing how we should fairly divide our assets, my lawyer served her with the divorce papers. She was still in her robe when she opened the envelope at the breakfast table. I watched as her expression transformed, her entire world crumbling in real time. The document spelled out everything. Not only was she ineligible for alimony, but there was also a possibility she would have to compensate me for damages. For the first time in a long time, she was speechless. She gaped at me, wide-eyed, as if seeing me for the first time. During the divorce proceedings, Natalie carried herself with feigned confidence, likely believing there was a way out. But she was gravely mistaken. The private investigator had left no stone unturned. The court was presented with irrefutable proof, photographic and time-stamped evidence of her clandestine meetings. Once the judge saw it, there was no denying the truth. Then came the crushing blow, the STD medication. I had taken pictures that night, preserving the damning evidence. I still remember the way the color drained from her face when my lawyer presented it. There it was, documented proof that she had been treating an infection she most certainly hadn't contracted from me. The judge didn't even bother masking his disdain. Texas is a fault-based divorce state, meaning that when a spouse is caught cheating, the entire case shifts in favor of the betrayed party. She had violated our vows, forfeiting any entitlement to alimony. She had expected a financial windfall. Instead, she walked away with nothing. And to make matters worse, because her infidelity was a direct cause of the divorce, there was a real possibility she would be required to compensate me for damages. But the final, most devastating blow came when the court ruled on custody. My lawyer presented everything. The night she abandoned our daughter to be with her lover, her reckless spending, the way she prioritized her affair over her own child. The judge didn't hesitate. He saw her for what she truly was, an unfit mother. I was awarded full custody. No shared parenting. No alternating weekends. No back-and-forth arrangements. Natalie was reduced to nothing more than a visitor in her own daughter's life. I had already safeguarded our assets, transferring wealth into accounts she couldn't access. By the time the final ruling came down, she had nothing left. When we walked out of that courtroom, she was no longer the same smug woman who had once demanded a divorce. I won't lie. There was a time when I might have considered reconciling for the sake of our daughter, but that time had long passed. I saw things with absolute clarity. Some mistakes are irreversible, and some people only regret their actions when they're forced to face the consequences. That's exactly what happened to Natalie. At first, she pretended to be indifferent, but the moment she realized she was losing custody, losing financial security, and had nothing to fall back on, suddenly, she wasn't so sure about leaving. She started calling, sending long messages reminiscing about our good years together, claiming she had made a mistake, insisting our daughter needed both of us. But where was that concern when she was sneaking around? Where was that remorse when she was lying to my face, treating me as if I wasn't good enough? I remained firm. She tried everything, guilt-tripping fake apologies, even blaming me for not fighting for our marriage. But you can't fight for something that the other person has already burned to the ground. She was never truly remorseful for what she did, only for getting caught, and even more so for losing the future she thought she was entitled to. Now I'm free, not just legally, but mentally, emotionally, and financially. For the first time in years, I can focus on my daughter, on building a life where I no longer have to tiptoe around lies or wonder what deception awaits me each day. This experience taught me invaluable lessons. First, never ignore the signs. If something feels wrong, trust your instincts. Second, always protect yourself, emotionally and financially. Had I not taken precautions I did, I would have been the one left with nothing. And third, some people will only respect you once they realize they can no longer manipulate you. So, what do you think? Did I handle this the right way? What would you have done in my place? Let me know your thoughts. And remember, she thought she was playing me. Turns out, she was playing herself.